Today I'm going to teach you and discuss splinting in occupational therapy. A little background is my senior year of high school, I took a career kind of like electronic research class which focused on occupational therapy, and the topic I chose to focus on was hand therapy and splint construction. I had a mentor for a semester who taught me how to construct different kinds of hand and wrist splints, and this was the deciding factor on how I chose to go into occupational therapy. A little bit about splints in general are they are custom fit. They're fit to the patient during their therapy session. And one of the most important things I was taught was that hand therapists follow the natural contour of the hand, rebuild natural arc of the hand, and are aware of certain positions and angles of the hand. The equipment that you need to construct splints during hand therapy sessions are heating agents, scissors, tape measure, ruler, and pen, polyform or easy form, and these are the two forms that it's often just the OT's preference on what they use, but polyform doesn't stick to itself. Easy form does, but it can be heated more often without being damaged, so it's kind of just what you prefer. A stockinette is also really important. It's often placed over the limb of the patient to protect from the heat of the splint while it's being formed to their limb, and it's also used when wearing a splint to help with sweat or discomfort. Dynamic splints are a little bit different. They have a little bit more parts to them, such as a finger sling, a dorsal wire support, fingers. This first splint is called a thumb C splint. It's a working splint, which means it's often worn during the day, and it's used often when the hand is kind of clasped together and you're able to pinch different things and do different movements. This next splint is called a thumb extension splint, and this one's a little bit more complicated. It's used to keep the thumb straight, often with injuries or conditions dealing with the radial side of the hand, and this helps just keep it kind of secure as it's healing. This third splint is called a resting hand splint. It's often used after a stroke when people's hand curls in and they don't extend their fingers the way they're supposed to. It's also used for arthritis, and this allows kind of your hand to rest and your joints to rest, and this decreases pain and aids in healing. This is called a wrist cock-up splint, and this one's made out of polyform. It's often used for protection from surgery or after surgery, and it's just kind of stable to stabilize the joint. And this one uses a stockinette liner, and it's encouraged because it protects from any other damage, sweat, just irritation of any kind, and it also has the padding on there which goes along the bony prominence on the ulnar side of the wrist, which also just helps with comfort. This next splint was by far the most complicated and the most interesting to construct. It's called a dynamic splint, which basically means the movable splint. This one is a dynamic radial nerve splint, and it's used for radial nerve palsy. And this condition is basically where the wrist is dropped and it's not functioning the way it's supposed to, the muscles, because of a nerve damage, so it often keeps the wrist in a neutral position, and you're able to open and close your hand, move your fingers around, and do movements that you wouldn't normally be able to. It can be worn at night and during the day, and this condition is when a person's nerve gets compressed to the point of where it's damaged and the muscles are then not plugged in or working where they're supposed to, and they aren't able to function. So this goal of this splint is to allow them to be able to do movements that they weren't previously able to do, and to hopefully get them back to the best functional ability that they can have.